Hi, my name is Kevin Gandy, and from my home to your home, welcome. We're facing an incredibly difficult situation with the COVID-19 quarantine. And if you're like me, you're probably going crazy sitting around your house waiting for the day when this will finally be over. We live in a fast-paced, busy world, and I often find myself, much like you, going from appointment to appointment, meeting to meeting, event to event. And I don't get a lot of time just to, sit here on my couch and have a cup of coffee and, just get to hang out on a day-to-day basis. And so times like this have actually been really great, where I get to wake up in the morning and have a lot of extra time to spare in order to spend time in the Word and to worship and to pray. And so this time of solitude and silence has actually been really good. I found myself growing closer to Jesus, and perhaps you have in your life as well. But sometimes, if you're like me, we can also find these times difficult because we can tend to dwell on things. The more time that we have at our disposal, the more we can dwell on things that maybe are negative, things that have hurt us, things that we've maybe repressed in our life or tried to push to the back of our minds, maybe start to bubble up during these times where we have more and more time to sit and think. When I was in high school, my family started to fall apart. My parents started to fight more. My dad started spending more and more nights on the couch. And by my senior year of high school, my family had all but fallen apart. My parents were really, in effect, separated at that point. Even though they lived under the same roof, they were fighting and constantly at each other's throats. And I just remember it being a really crazy moment of my life. And so when I had the opportunity to go off to college, I had the opportunity to go about 1,000 miles away. And that was an amazing opportunity for me to get away and to kind of leave that situation with my family and to forge a new path for myself. But when I was in high school, my dad had given me a red Chevrolet Silverado. I know, a lot of you know me as kind of an LA city kid, but, growing up in North Carolina, I really wanted a big red truck. And so I asked for it, and my parents gave it to me, and I took it up to college my freshman year. And one day I was sitting in my dorm room. It was April of 2006. And I was studying, and I got a phone call from the Marquette campus safety officers. And they said, "Are you Kevin Gandy?" And I said, "I am." And they said, "Do you drive a red Silverado?" And I said, "I do." And they said, "Well, we just wanted to inform you that the Milwaukee Police Department has come and confiscated your vehicle and towed it out of the campus parking garage. Somebody has claimed the vehicle as their own, and it no longer belongs to you." And I was like, that's crazy. What's going on? And they said, "We don't know what to tell you, but you're not the owner of the vehicle anymore." And somebody came and picked it up. And I said, "Well, all my stuff's inside. I had books, I had sweatshirts, I had, all my personal possessions. I had things in there." And they said, "We're so sorry, but you won't be able to come and get those back." And so I called my dad and I said, "What's going on? My truck's been taken. What's going on?" And he said, "Well, I'm so sorry, son, but I had to give the title of your car to someone that I owed a lot of money. And I gave the title of your truck as collateral for a payment that I owed them. And I can't pay them back. And so the person has taken back your truck as payment for the debt that I owe them." And I remember hanging up the phone and feeling so angry and yet so devastated that my own father would take back the gift that he had given me in a way of paying off a debt to a complete stranger. And I did not know what to do. I was angry, I was sad, and I was upset. A couple months later, I found out my parents were going to get a divorce because my dad had been cheating on my mom. And we all had sort of suspected things like that, but it all finally came to a head and my family finally fell apart, much to do with my dad's indiscretions. And I remember being so angry and unwilling to forgive. Maybe you have been unwilling to forgive someone in your life. Maybe it's a friend or a family member or a child or a coworker or somebody that you trusted who's hurt you. Maybe it's somebody who's stolen from you or lied to you or cheated or taken away something, or maybe been hypocritical, or has hurt you in some capacity. But you see, we as Christians are called by Jesus to forgive. You see, in the book of Mark, chapter 11, verses 24 and 25, Jesus says this. He says, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you will have received it, and it'll be given to you. And whenever you stand up and pray, forgive others. If you have anything against someone, pray for them, forgive them, so that your Father who is also in heaven may forgive you of your sins." You see, if we are unwilling to forgive people in our life, then how are we ever going to fully receive the forgiveness that Jesus gives to us in our life? If you're struggling to forgive someone in your life, I challenge you to these three things. Number one, it is okay to be angry. It is okay to be upset, and it is okay to struggle with this issue. You see, when my dad hurt me and my family, I was upset and I didn't speak to him for many, many years. And even to this day, I'm still working to redevelop that relationship with my dad. But I just want you to know that as much as sometimes we can feel guilty about that, it is okay to feel upset, to feel hurt, and to feel broken. And secondly, I encourage you to pray for yourself. Ask God to lift you up, to fill your heart, to renew your mind, and allow you to forgive someone, but ultimately to receive the forgiveness that Jesus has given you. You see, when Jesus died on the cross, he didn't just die up there on a cross by himself. He was flanked by two murderers, the worst of the worst, who had done atrocious things to hurt other people. And even to them, Jesus says, "Follow me, and today you'll be with me in heaven." You see, Jesus is forgiving of all people, his friends and his enemies, those who were for him and those who were against him. And thirdly, I challenge you to pray for the people who've hurt you. Pray that God would forgive them, that as much as he's forgiven you, that he would give you the courage and the power to forgive the people in your life. Because when we forgive those who've hurt us, we find ultimate healing and restoration in our own being. I'll leave you with this story about Corrie ten Boom. Corrie ten Boom was a Christian who lived in the 1940s. Her family hid away a family of Jewish people in their home during World War II. One day, the police came to the door and found them out and took them all to a concentration camp and took them away. And eventually, Corrie ten Boom lost her sister in the concentration camp. She eventually died and succumbed to the ravages of war. Corrie ten Boom, years later, after losing her family, losing her sister, and losing everything she had, she wrote a book called The Hiding Place, and then it was later turned into a movie as well. But one day she was on a speaking tour, and she saw a man in the crowd that she recognized as one of the prison guards at the concentration camp where her sister was murdered. The man came up to her afterwards, and she said, as he came up, he said, "I want to ask for your forgiveness." And he stuck out his hand. Corrie, she said, "I felt cold chills going up my bones." She's like, I knew that I should forgive him. I knew that I had to forgive him. But she's like, I know that forgiveness is a motive of the will that is separate from the temperature of the heart. But everything in her bones felt icy cold. And so she prayed, "God, give me the power to forgive." And with that, she put out her hand. And in taking his hand and saying, "I forgive you," she said a warm feeling began to just flow through her body. And she knew that God was at work. When we forgive other people in our life, we become happier, healthier, and more free people in our own. I hope that this message has been an inspiration to you, and I challenge you to consider maybe some of the relationships in your life that are broken and need restoration. I'll be praying for you, and I hope that you'll be praying for me.